Good evening. I would like to call to order this regular meeting of the Encinitas City Council on Wednesday, May 24th, 2023 at 6 p.m. And would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Blackwell?
Here.
Councilmember Ehlers?
Here.
Councilmember Hinsey?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lyons?
Here.
Mayor Krantz?
Here.
Record will show that all members of the City Council are present.
Okay, great. If you'd all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi, how you doing?
Okay, thank you. And tonight is a busy night for presentations and proclamations. So we will start with a proclamation for Gun Violence Awareness Day, and there are a bunch of folks from Moms Demand and wearing their orange. And so if you could join me over here, that would be appreciated. Very good, thank you. So here I got to try and keep everything straight. Here we have a bunch of very active people working hard every day to raise the issue of the need for gun violence prevention. And Nancy Hardwick is, I would say, the team leader here and does a tremendous job. She has dedicated a lot of her time to address this issue. She is here with Michelle Sear. She is here with her husband, James Hardwick. She's here with Teresa Beauchamp. Bobby Ayers, my old friend from kindergarten, and yep. Joe Powers. Kate Stearns, Jack Stearns, a young feller here, Renette Yeomans, Paula Verdu, Kelly Schrader and Dylan, yep, and Veronica Clough, Larry Lawrence, and Alice Bronca. Oh, and Chris Stewart. You left one off. Chris Stewart. Chris Powell, I'm sorry. It's old, yes, Chris, there are two. Yes, so I apologize. So I am going to read the proclamation, then I'm going to hand over the microphone to Nancy to talk a little bit more about it. But I want you all to know that this proclamation says, whereas every day more than 120 Americans are killed by gun violence and more than 200 are shot and wounded, with an average of more than 17,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas Americans are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people in other high-income countries. And whereas California has more than 3,200 gun deaths every year, with a rate of 8.1 deaths per 100,000 people, a crisis that costs the state $41.9 billion each year, of which $1.1 billion is paid by taxpayers. California has the 45th highest rate of gun deaths in the U.S., and whereas gun homicides and assaults are concentrated in cities with more than half of all firearm-related gun deaths in the nation occurring in 127 cities, and whereas cities across the nation, including in Encinitas, are working to end the senseless violence with evidence-based solutions. And whereas protecting public safety in the communities they serve is a mayor's highest responsibility. And whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from people with dangerous histories. And whereas mayors and law enforcement officers, in partnership with local violence intervention activists and resources, know their communities best, are the most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. And whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever as we see an increase in firearm homicides and non-fatal shootings across the country, increased calls to domestic violence hotlines, and an increase in city gun violence. Whereas in January of 2013, Hadiah Pendleton was tragically shot and killed at age 15. And on June 2nd, 2023, to recognize the 26th birthday of Hadiah Pendleton, people across the United States will recognize National Violence Awareness Day and wear orange in tribute to Hadiah Pendleton and other victims of gun violence and the loved ones of those victims. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadiah's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange, they chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 2nd, the first Friday in June in 2023, to help raise awareness about gun violence, and whereas by wearing orange on June 2nd, 2023, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the hands of people who should not have access to them, and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our families and communities safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Tony Kranz, Mayor of the City of Encinitas, along with all my council colleagues, do hereby proclaim the first Friday in June, June 2nd, 2023, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day. I encourage all citizens to support their local communities' efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. And with that, I would say thank you to Nancy for all your efforts, and hand the microphone to you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'd like, here we go. Someone hold that. Thank you, Mayor Krantz and City Council members. I'm Nancy Hardwick, a resident of Encinitas and a volunteer with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I'm also a mother and a grandmother who's horrified that our children have to practice active shooter drills in their classrooms, and that gun violence is the leading cause of death for young people in this country. As many people know, Moms is a national, nonpartisan, grassroots movement with more than 10 million supporters nationwide and chapters in every state. In California alone, we have over 50 chapters. We advocate for public safety measures that can protect our children and communities from gun violence. Moms volunteers work with our elected leaders to enact common sense laws and encourage a culture of responsible gun ownership. Recently, more than 250 California moms traveled to Sacramento this March, and I was honored to be with them, to personally meet with our state legislators to support new gun safety laws. We know that gun violence is preventable, and we are committed to doing what it takes to make our families safe. We appreciate the Council's recognition of National Gun Violence Awareness Day and the Wear Orange events associated with it. Encinitas has been very fortunate to have a city council that supports a safer community, and we thank the council for recently enacting a safe storage firearms ordinance and banning ghost guns. I just wanted to mention briefly that we are having a community event on Saturday, June 3rd, 10 a.m. in the morning. It's actually sponsored by Students Demand Action. Local high school students are organizing this, and Moms has helped supporting it. We're going to be holding the event at the Kook in Cardiff. I think most people know where that is. We'll have some guest speakers, including Mayor Tony Krantz and State Senator Catherine Blakespear, and a couple other people that you know. So we're inviting the community to come out and help support National Gun Violence Awareness Day and help support our student activists. And I know it'd be a pleasure to see any of you there. And as I mentioned, it starts at 10 in the morning. So thanks for your time, and thank you, Council, for making this opportunity.
Thank you all. And one of the things that didn't get mentioned is the issue of mental health. people who are exercising their Second Amendment rights and have weapons in their home for their protection. It's very unfortunate how often those weapons get used by the people who are depressed, who take their own lives. So let's hope that people that have weapons in their homes are storing them safely to try and avoid that tragic incident. So thank you all very much for your grassroots efforts. There is some progress being made. It's very slow, but we need to keep up the pace.
As we say, our leader, the woman who founded Moms Demand Action, Shannon Watts, she says, moms never give up.
Never give up. Yes.
Can we get a photo?
Sure, yes. That's what. Okay. Now we are going to salute our Public Works Department, and I am going to be joined by the Director of Public Works, Sylvester Mabry, and he's also going to have Ashley Stratakis. She's our Senior Management Analyst, Philip Horn, Management Analyst, Mike Emerson, Stormwater Environmental Specialist, and Rachel Sale, Program Assistant. Did I get them all? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, very good. So I will read the proclamation here. This is National Public Works Week 2023. Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of Encinitas. And whereas these infrastructures, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of Public Works professionals who are federally mandated first responders, and the managers and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, urban forest, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of Encinitas to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works, first responders, and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2023 marks the 63rd annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association, now therefore I, Tony Kranz, Mayor of the City of Encinitas, along with all City Council members, do hereby designate the week May 21st through 27th, 2023 as National Public Works Week in the City of Encinitas, and urge all residents to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Dated this 24th day of May, 2023. And before I hand the microphone to Sylvester, I wanted to tell a story. When the atmospheric rivers were coming one after another, and the streets of Leucadia, where I live, the old part of town, were flooding, I was up in the middle of the night watching that rain fall, and I happened to see a vehicle approaching on the street. I'm looking out my window, and I saw at 3 in the morning a vac truck go by. And it just reminded me that vac truck was on its way to Hermes to suck up a bunch of water out of some facilities that we have to try and manage the stormwater in our city. And there I was, 3 in the morning, our city public works team is out addressing these issues as first responders. And it's that sort of work and dedication that I very much appreciate, and I'm sure that the taxpayers of our city do as well. So thank you, Sylvester, to your team for the work that you do.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We really appreciate this recognition and proclamation. This is the team right here. These are the professionals. They're dedicated and committed to enhancing the quality of life for our city. Like the mayor said, I want to give a shout out to our street maintenance division and also our wastewater team. They were up around the clock mitigating stormwater in the flood-prone areas of our city. And I want to thank them and their families for their commitment. And lastly, we have a video that we would like to share with you.
The Public Works and Utilities departments provide all the necessary and vital elements for a community to exist and function properly and safely. This includes roads, sewer systems, buildings, water, trash collection, and much, much more. Oftentimes, these resources get overlooked because they're just a part of your everyday life, but there is a team of people who make sure that these services are provided to our community every day. The Public Works administrative staff work behind the scenes to ensure that those who perform vital work to keep our city functioning have the necessary support and resources. They manage the department's budgets, contracts, and purchasing, and provide administrative support to the Fleet Division, street maintenance, facilities, stormwater and solid waste, as well as the Utilities Department. Fleet maintenance is responsible for vehicle and equipment purchasing, as well as maintaining all city and water district vehicles. The city currently maintains approximately 153 vehicles ranging from fire apparatuses to electric vehicles and hybrids. Since 2017, the city has been transitioning its fleet to zero or low emission vehicles. To date, the city has 7 all-electric vehicles, 12 hybrids, 1 plug-in hybrid, and 56 vehicles and equipment that are fueled by renewable diesel. The Street Maintenance Division provides continuous maintenance of the city's right-of-way and related infrastructure. They help to ensure that city streets and sidewalks are safe and accessible to all. They maintain 172 miles of public roads, 350 miles of sidewalk, over 3,000 street lights, and over 10,000 traffic signs that are vital to public safety. The division oversees citywide street sweeping and pavement striping programs, as well as the maintenance of above-ground drainage systems and flood control basins. Additionally, the division supervises the ongoing care and maintenance of approximately 13,000 trees located within the public right-of-way. The city's Facilities Division works to maintain important public buildings, ensuring that city employees and residents have safe places to work, play, and gather, even during emergencies. They help to integrate security and safety measures and work alongside various contract services to meet the demands of the community. The Facilities Division helps maintain 6 fire stations, 2 permanent lifeguard towers, and general infrastructure in 23 parks. They also maintain the Civic Center, City Library, Public Works Facility, and the Encinitas Community and Senior Center. The city's Stormwater Management Division serves to protect and enhance the quality of local surface waters, including creeks, lagoons, and beaches along the Pacific Ocean through comprehensive stormwater pollution prevention programming. Critical functions of the program include water quality monitoring, construction and commercial facility inspection and enforcement, residential response, clean water hotline management, and public outreach and education. The Stormwater Management Division also enforces plastic pollution prevention ordinances prohibiting the use of styrofoam food serviceware and plastic straws. The city's Solid Waste and Recycling Division supports the city's vision for a zero-waste future through the development and implementation of critical waste reduction and recycling programs. The city's franchise waste hauler, EDCO, is an essential partner in the collection and processing of waste in Encinitas and provides core services throughout the community to support the city's waste reduction and recycling goals. The Solid Waste and Recycling Division facilitates and organizes education programs and events, ensures compliance with state requirements, and provides oversight and enforcement of local ordinances applicable to specific waste generators. The San Diego Water District started as the San Diego Irrigation District in 1922 with less than a mile of redwood pipe from Lake Hodges and the San Diego Reservoir, and now maintains more than 170 miles of pipeline and over 12,000 service lines. The district has co-owned the San Diego Reservoir and the Badger Filtration Plant since the 1970s, before Encinitas was an incorporated city. The district's personnel respond to everything from water main breaks service leaks, and hit hydrants. The district is also responsible for meter reading, system operations, and cross-connection control protection. The district continues to ensure that customers have a safe and reliable water supply and works to adopt new, proven technology that improves efficiency and enhances service. The Wastewater Collection Division maintains 126 miles of sewer main lines, 66 miles of underground storm drains, over 1,800 storm drain inlet boxes, and more than 2,500 manholes that transfer wastewater back to the treatment plants where it is treated, then recycled or disposed of. Wastewater collection services include cleaning sewer main lines, clearing stoppages, repairing pipeline breaks, and emergency response. These unsung heroes make sure that the water keeps flowing in the right direction. Our essential workers provide services that help ensure public safety within the Encinitas community. Even in uncertain times, the public can depend on both the City of Encinitas Public Works Department and the Department of Utilities to keep things functioning safely and smoothly. The Public Works and Utilities Departments provide
Fantastic. Yay. Okay, very good. Do we want to take a picture? Get the council down here, take a picture? You guys come up here. We'll stand behind you. Yes, come on up a little bit. Mike Emerson here was one of the, is the city employee that had my dad as a PE teacher way back when, so he's revealing his age there. Oh, he did too. Awesome. I didn't know there were two. He didn't want to talk about it. Mike did. Apparently, he made him run too many laps or something when he was a PE teacher there. So, okay, next we're moving on to something very important, and I would like to have the opportunity to present a couple of awards here tonight to Susan Hayes and Danny Salzhandler. The City of Encinitas Senior Citizen Commission, in partnership with the Encinitas Rotary Club, is pleased to recognize the award recipients for the 2022 Senior Citizen of the Year Award and Lifetime Achievement Award. This awards program, which began in 2014, is designed to identify and celebrate people who have selflessly contributed to the City of Encinitas as a senior citizen role model. I am pleased to announce that Susan Hayes has been selected for the Senior Citizen of the Year Award, and Danny Salzhandler has been selected for the Lifetime Achievement Award. Susan, if you could come up here and join me. Danny, too, you can come up as well. We'll start with Susan, though. Susan Hayes' commitment to the community is impressive with over 20 years of volunteer service. She volunteered for Leucadia and Encinitas 101 Main Street, Encinitas Historical Society, the 101 Artist Colony, Paul Ecke Elementary School, the Cardiff Botanical Society, Friends of the Cardiff Library, and the City of Encinitas. Her service includes chairing the first Wednesday music series and curating art exhibits at the Cardiff Library, keeping the Book Nook program open for the community, and participating in the creation of a book called Cardiff Kook and His Magic Carpet Ride, and Encinitas Our History and People book. She has done all of this and much more eagerly and wholeheartedly and with one of the brightest smiles that I've ever seen. So thank you very much, Susan, for all that you've done. And here's the microphone to say a few words.
So I said earlier today, I stand here because of my younger sister, Meredith Straw. So 20 years ago, she asked me to please volunteer in the city. And I said, volunteer? No, not me. I'm not giving my time away. So slowly before she passed away, I had come home to take care of her. She reminded me, and she asked me again, please volunteer. It'll change your life. Needless to say, it has changed my life. So I would like to say thank you very much. This is humbling, and I am very pleased to accept this award. Thank you, Tony.
And the second award goes to Danny Salshandler. Danny has actively volunteered with several organizations, including the Encinitas, Leucadia, and Cardiff 101 Main Street Associations, Downtown Encinitas Main Street Association, City of Encinitas, 101 Artist Colony, Encinitas Art, Culture, and Ecology Alliance, San Diego Heritage Museum, Encinitas Library, American Legion, and many others. He was the founder of the Full Moon Poets, which produced poetry slams and contributed greatly to the nationally recognized Arts Alive banner program. Danny also worked to bring Operation Homecoming to Encinitas, which was a book tour for letters from home from soldiers in several wars. He created works of art and donated them to various nonprofit organizations in Encinitas for fundraising events. Danny was responsible for getting Encinitas included in the Art Towns of California book. Danny's devotion to volunteer service for the common good has benefited many, including horses that he helped save in Leeuwenhoek during the fires. Encinitas is a better place to live, thrive, work, and play because of Danny. And one thing that's not listed in here that I'm aware of that I think is, to me, reflects the courage that he has is that he was drafted into the Army out of Texas and served in Vietnam and managed to come home alive. And I think that he must have made some pledge to live some lives of his comrades that had lost their lives in that war, because he has done more than one human could possibly do. So with that, Danny, I present to you this award.
Well, I'd like to thank the Senior Citizens Commission and the Encinitas Rotary, Encinitas Chamber of Commerce, Deb Mitchell, Christine Kramer-Levander, and Sherry Yardley, who wrote some very kind words about me. And I'd like to thank my wife sitting back there in the peanut gallery with, she's sitting with several of the artists that I have helped exploit over the past few years. And to our city council, our city staff, our city employees who make Encinitas a wonderful town that's so easy to give a hand when it's needed.
Thank you, Danny. Okay, our last presentation tonight is going to be from John Byram from the North Coastal Prevention Coalition, and he will be joined by Kelly McCormick from the San Diego Alliance to present an award.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. My name's John Byram, and I'm from North Coastal Prevention Coalition. About 17 years ago, there was a counselor in a school-based treatment program in Carlsbad. And what she found is that on April 20th, the students would come back and they had gotten high on April 20th. It's an unofficial get high day, and we wanted to give some kind of ability to keep those kids from starting. One of the what we did was we started kind of a festival at that school. And it's evolved over the years. We now have it at Boomer's Entertainment Center. And we have a PSA contest that's countywide. And 6 years ago, we started to have law enforcement go-kart races. This year we had Encinitas Sheriff, we had Carlsbad PD, Oceanside PD, the Vista Sheriffs, DEA, and the District Attorney investigators all race. Last 5 out of the 6 years, the Sheriff's Department has won it. And he brought the title back to the Sheriff's Department. Kenneth Wells, Deputy Kenneth Wells, and come on over. He won the race. He did a great job, beat most of the law enforcement by a good clip. Just so happens this year we started too to have students race against the law enforcement. He didn't do so well in that one. I met Captain Lawrence at San Diego Alliance's meeting, and I asked him to send a deputy to get involved in the go-kart race, and he sent Deputy Wells and kind of, well, here, you say a few words about it.
I brought it back to the sheriff's station. How about that? Thanks to Captain Lawrence for allowing me to do this. It was awesome. And thanks to John for putting on this event. I'm holding the trophy, but anytime we can keep kids off the streets and off drugs, that's a win for everybody. So thanks to John.
This is a presentation that I would have loved to have video for or photographs of. That would have been a lot of fun to see. But so next time, yes. So picture time. Okay, I appreciate the indulgence there. We will now move on to oral communications.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have 5. And just a reminder, oral communications are limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and these are for items not listed on the agenda. First speakers are Greg Lefevre, followed by Donna Westbrook, and then Kelly McCormick.
Members of the council, I'm Greg Lefevre. I live in Cardiff. I'm here to speak about the conversion of Highway 101. Speaking to you from the real world, the damage you have done is incalculable. Taking a scenic highway and turning it into a morass of incalculable navigation zigzags, lines, dots, and graphic puzzles. Reverse diagonal parking may work in crowded, slow urban settings, but you're inviting calamity, injury, and lawsuits by installing these out on a moderate speed thoroughfare. Mr. City Attorney, you're going to be a very busy fellow. And 2 bike lanes is not enough. You need 4. And those dotted berms that catapult cyclists into traffic, you're going to be a busy guy. I get it. Cycling is good. It's good for the soul. It's good for the body. But many of us cannot ride bikes. I'm 76 years old. Decades ago, I was critically injured in a traffic accident, T-boned by a drunk driver. I spent a month in the hospital, years in physical therapy, which continues to this day. I cannot ride a bike to the beach. I must drive. And by your planning pornography out there, you've reduced parking from really inadequate to practically nil. In fact, you've denied me access to my beach. But this ugliness, this civic ugliness, is actually a sign of another ugliness, your arrogance. You failed to persuade enough people to abandon their cars and take up bicycles. And so, by failing the persuasion, you've decided instead to force people into this pattern. That may work in China. It might have worked in the Soviet Union, but it doesn't work here. This blight will go away one way or the other, but that blight down there will go away. Over the years, you've made some really boneheaded decisions, but this time, you've really outdone yourselves.
We are getting quite a few emails and feedback. I would encourage everybody to let the project be finished, and 6 months from now, it'll be the popular, very popular destination.
50 accidents.
There are 50 more parking spaces than there were when it started.
Tony, and you know it.
Elections cannot come soon enough. Donna Westbrook, Encinitas. Here I'm going to talk about not getting information that should be provided before it gets put on to an agenda that you all get to see. Or maybe it's in the back room that the city manager gives it to you, and then maybe we'll get to see it. But as in the case, I'll give you an example. For the homeless. Now, I talked before about this, that you should have everything in front of you, which you don't have. And one of them, like in this one today, is a contract or an agreement from HCTD. HCD. So what you end up with is nothing that you can come back that's concrete. There's all sorts of things in contracts, and including guidelines that says you have to be responsible for all these things, not just what's in the contract, but our guidelines. Now, I know maybe you don't think you can just pass it off to the city manager, but when she goes and goes bye-bye, guess who's going to get the blame, the fault? It will be all 5 of you. It will be, well, if one says no, it will be all 4 of you. But it will be the ones who gave the order, who said, we're just going to tell the city manager, you do it or you designate somebody. Now, I don't know if you really understand what designating means, but if you have somebody in charge and telling them that they can then designate it to somebody else, you're going down the wrong road for telling anybody as an authority. You do not designate and then tell the designatee that they can designate, which then becomes that one can then designate. And really, I'm getting tired of seeing all of these on the agenda, that you can designate, you can designate, you can designate. Where does your responsibility fall? At the first, before you even tell anybody. So make your decisions, but make sure you stand up and said, I did it. I was the one that started. I was the one that created the problem. And as the roads look like now, I helped them look like that. And I'm really getting tired of it, and I'm getting tired of all the crappy road that's been torn up. It's not because of the rains. We got a public works you just gave an award to. What do? Don't they go out and fill the potholes? Don't they go out and smooth it out at least for a while? Are we going to have to wait till a contractor comes in and does it? And you better look at how much money we're spending on contracts. It's way over. Get the public works out there and start fixing. It's getting really annoying, and it's getting a lot bumpier, and you may have problems in that respect, too. Thank you.
Next speaker is Kelly McCormick, followed by Raul Villamar, and then Mark Maville.
Hello, this is Kelly McCormick. One of my roles with San Diego Alliance for Drug-Free Youth is to help facilitate a program called Start Smart at high schools in the San Diego district. Students who would like to park on campus are required to attend the class with a parent or guardian. The focus is safety and the dangers of distracted driving and driving under the influence of alcohol, marijuana, or other drugs. My colleague Nancy Logan was interviewed about this last week on CBS News 8. For her family, the consequences of impaired driving are personal. 41 years ago, her first husband was killed by a driver impaired by marijuana and alcohol. Since that time, the number of marijuana-impaired drivers has increased, and so has the potency of marijuana products. Responding to the data, the National Safety Council issued a statement saying, in part, it is unsafe to be under the influence of cannabis due to the increased risk of injury or death to the driver and others. Research is clear that cannabis impacts psychomotor skills and cognitive ability, unquote. Last week, Quest Diagnostics issued a statement about the number of employees in the U.S. workforce who tested positive for marijuana following on-the-job accidents, reaching the highest level in 25 years. The Quest statement says, quote, intoxicating cannabis products can have a major impact on safety at work and have been proven to slow reaction time, impact memory, and impair skills essential to driving, creating enormous challenges for employers, unquote. As marijuana shops are coming to Encinitas in the near future, it's important for all of us to get this word out, to remind everyone that driving while using marijuana is inherently unsafe and dangerous to oneself and others. Thank you.
I'm back to talk about the street parking again. These folks, man, they said everything I needed to say. But I got the one from the Coastal Commission here. It says restaurants near the coast will restore street side parking. And then they put a lot of regulations on you folks. I won't go through all of them, but I'm glad they did bring it up. If you folks have looked at it, there's a reporter named Lori Weisenberg. It's pretty good. And, I've been getting a call from a lot of people in the city, downtown, all the small businesses. They don't want to come up here because they know what's going to happen. They don't want to come up here and just sit here around just thinking of the same thing. Mr. Krantz told me that a couple of weeks ago that he's already made up his mind. I don't see anybody else coming down and talk to us, Am I going to agenda? The agenda said here on this thing, it says that by July. Did you figure that? Do you guys understand that you folks have to not wait till the end of the year? It says on here till July. So I don't know what to say after these folks have already told me and said everything I wanted to say. So thank you very much.
Next speaker is Mark Maville, and then Elena Thompson.
I'm Mark. Hey, guys. Been bird dog to come in and talk about a lot of these issues that you guys are bringing up. Namely, they want new nets down at Cottonwood for the pickleball. I was told to ask if you guys have a way of doing that. Great people that are in that club or whatever that is. The barriers that he's talking about, I was riding with a friend the other day and he goes, Jesus, you got to take something in there and have these things pulled away. COVID is over. Pull it off the street, go go back inside. And that was pretty brutal. So he doesn't want to come up here because I just get thrown into it. But we've got to put that stuff on the docket. I can't just, come in here and tell you things that are happening out there because boots on the ground. And it doesn't get put into play here. We're talking about tax revenue crap and stuff like that. Streets are definitely a nightmare. But you have to allocate the right monies to the right things. And I did a lot of stuff in Scripps when I lived there to have things like this taken care of. The cannabis huts, it's going to perpetuate the drug problem. You say it's a state thing. I say put in an injunction. A lot of those cannabis huts now are going out of business because they are improperly feeding the public. It's no longer medicinal. And you're not going to have just marijuana. You're going to have fentanyl that's going to be dealt in the back, other things, whether you got cameras or not, things are going to happen that you're not going to want to bring into Encinitas. Believe me, it's going to be a nightmare if those things come in and are able to operate. They're not doing very well out there anyway. And I've talked to the sheriff. Yes, if you have been hitting that pipe or whatever, marijuana, you will get a DUI for that. And that lady was correct. I can't remember. Yes. It will affect your judgment, your motor movements, and to feed it to the general public like this, just eliminate it. Eliminate the cantinas, the underage drinking, and all that other crap that's affecting the high quality of this city. This city has been deemed the best beach community in the state. Let's keep it that way. We've got our sheriff that are doing the best they can, but you can't, put their hands behind their back and they can't do certain things. So the cantinas have got to go. Underage drinking and all the other crap that's going on, it's just going to dilute the beauty of this city to a point where my daughter doesn't even want to come in here right now. So that's unfortunate because she doesn't feel safe. Let's make it a safe, comfortable environment. So that's all I got.
Hi, everyone. Like Susan Hayes, this is my volunteer civic day. So hi again, I'm back. I was at the budget meeting earlier, but I wanted to just say that I love the public comment section of the meeting. It's really great to hear everybody's thoughts and feelings, and I get a lot out of it, and I know you do too. So thank you for this opportunity to exercise our freedom of speech. But I was here because, and I also wanted to thank the people who every week get up and talk about the risks of drugs and cannabis for our youth. It's really an important subject, and what's coming and what continues to come at us is kind of scary, because Senator Wiener today in California, in Sacramento, was trying to get through finally before June 2nd his bill to legalize hallucinogenics, if you could imagine such a thing. And I mean, would that mean that legislators can also take hallucinogenics? Like, how crazy is that? So this is the battle, the war on drugs that we're facing right now. But anyway, the only point I wanted to make is in consideration of our council, and I really thank you guys for what you're doing, and I know you get a lot of brunt sitting up there from all of us, but regarding the Cardiff cycle track, that new section of the roadway, I too drove it, and I'm actually afraid to bike it because those bike lanes have been narrowed, and they put me right next to fast-moving cars without a bike buffer. And so I just wanted to really point out, in consideration of our new council members and even the older former council members and mayor, that this was the past Mayor Blake Spear's idea. And I was a member of Bike Walk Encinitas, and we all voted against this plan that's now in Cardiff, as did the San Diego Bike Coalition. And so basically, as I mentioned earlier in my budget public comment, I think it's so important that we have a mobility manager on staff, and I didn't hear where the chips fell on that. But I hope you're going to hire one, and we really get a true expert that's not like a freeway expert that we had with some past hires. part-time, but really someone who knows how to do the work that we need done. Because we're a great town, and we're a town of pedestrians and cyclists, and we want to be outdoors and enjoy our weather, and we do need safe mobility, and you all know that already. So we just need to get it right. And in defense of you, a lot of you did not vote for that roadway. So I thank you for your continued good work, and we're here to support you. Yeah, thanks.
That position is
That does conclude oral communications.
very good. So that takes us to a report from closed session. And I will report that we had a employee evaluation closed session to evaluate the city attorney, and we took no reportable action.
Still here.
So he's there. And I didn't even let you do your job after all that, yes. sorry.
Noted.
And City Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the posted agenda, and then moving to the consent calendar, no items have been removed by members of the public.
Okay. So, go ahead.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Motion carries unanimously.
Excellent. Moving on to our action items tonight. We will open with item 10A, a public hearing to receive testimony regarding the fiscal year 2023-24 Encinitas Landscape and Lighting District. And our contact person for this is Senior Management Analyst Yum. But before I let Lois start, I would like to read our procedures for this public hearing. There will be a staff report, and then the council will be asked to disclose any other information they've received that is not included in the staff report. We'll then have preliminary questions by the council. We'll open the public hearing and hear from the public. And then once the public has had the opportunity to speak, we will close the public hearing. Then the council will deliberate and take whatever appropriate action we decide on. So, Lois.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Lois Yum, Senior Management Analyst with the Engineering Department. With me tonight is Anna Tangatwe, our Landscaping and Lighting District Consultant from Harris & Associates, and Director Bankston. The item before you tonight is a public hearing to receive testimony on the renewal of the Encinitas Landscape and Lighting District for fiscal year 2023 to 2024. State law requires that this public hearing be held prior to council's renewal of the district and authorization to collect assessments for the upcoming year. In 1987, the City Council formed the City of Encinitas Landscape and Lighting District, otherwise known as ELLD, which levies an assessment on parcels of land based upon the special benefit they receive. The assessments currently provide a dedicated source of funding for the installation, operations, and maintenance of street lighting, traffic signals, and landscaping within the city. The ELLD consists of 8 separate benefit zones, which are labeled Zones A through H. Zone A is a citywide zone, and all developed parcels within the city contribute to this fund. This zone funds the operations, maintenance, and improvement costs for all streetlights, traffic signals, and landscaped medians on major thoroughfares throughout the city. The photo shows lighting and median landscaping on Santa Fe Road, which is maintained through funding in Zone A. Zone B assesses the costs associated with localized street lighting in residential areas. Residential parcels that have street lighting within close proximity contribute to this fund. Zone C assesses the costs associated with localized street lighting in commercial areas. Zones D through G fund localized landscaping and park improvements that were approved as development or subdivision map conditions, such as the landscaping in Village Park or in the Encinitas neighborhood. Pictured here is the landscape median and street lighting on Cerro Street. Since these improvements provide a special benefit to a specific group of developed parcels, the costs associated with these improvements are assessed only among those parcels directly receiving the benefit. Zone H funds street lighting, park, and landscaping improvements within the Encinitas Ranch specific plan area. The 1972 Landscape and Lighting Act, which governs the establishment of the assessment districts, requires that the city prepare and file an annual report or engineer's report to outline the methodology for apportioning assessments, projected revenues and expenditures, and the assessments for each of the city's landscape and lighting zones. On March 22, 2023, Council adopted a resolution directing the preparation of the annual engineer's report. On April 26, 2023, Council received the preliminary engineer's report and adopted a resolution stating its intention to renew the landscape and lighting district. Tonight's public hearing is the final step in the annual renewal of the Encinitas Landscape and Lighting District for zones A through H. The current assessments, maximum assessments, and the proposed annual assessments per benefit unit are displayed on the screen. As part of the analysis for the 2014-2015 fiscal year, we determined that since zones E and F had excess reserves, as well as other sources of revenues, that those assessments could be reduced to $0. No changes are proposed for the other zones, which are currently at the maximum rates. Our recommendation is to conduct the public hearing and adopt Resolution 2023-17, which confirms the engineer's report and orders the transmission of charges to the county auditor for collection. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Council disclosure, please.
Nothing to disclose.
Nothing to disclose.
I'm actually going to recuse myself from this item because I do own a condo in Village Park.
Nothing to disclose.
Nothing to disclose. We will now wait for Kelly to. Okay, any preliminary questions? Seeing none, that means we are on to public speakers.
We do have one, so I'm opening the public hearing.
Oh, yep, open.
Donna Westbrook?
Donna Westbrook, Encinitas. This is an illegal hearing. For 2 years in the past of the previous council, they did not have a hearing for the Lighting and Landscape District. 1 year, no hearing. Another year, no hearing. If you did not have the hearings then, you forfeited your right to continue hearings. You no longer have a district. It's gone. So I would say this is illegal. And what you sent to the county during those years to make it sound like you had a hearing was a resolution that said, fraudulently, by the way, that it was made to sound as if you had a hearing. You did not have a hearing. And we can pursue this more, but this is illegal right now of what you're doing. The district is gone, the zones are gone. You no longer have a lighting and landscaping, so just please, don't vote on it. Whatever you do, it's going to come back and tell you no. And I oppose it, even if you try it.
That concludes speakers.
Okay, thank you. I have closed the public hearing and would open up to council discussion. Oh, there it is, Bruce Sailors.
I guess I would turn to the city attorney and ask, under COVID, what were the rules, what happened, and have you looked at this at all?
I have not looked at this. I was not here during the COVID time when this was previously adopted. I have not looked into this issue.
But I can tell you that the city attorney at the time received a significant amount of correspondence from Donna, and the public hearings were held on consent. which her assertion is that that is an illegal public hearing. But it is the opportunity to have a public hearing, and according to our city attorney, it is a legal way of conducting a public hearing. So she's making an assertion that is a question of fact and under the law, and there's only one way to have that settled, and that's adjudicate it. And so, yep.
Yeah. So, and is there any also further mitigating circumstances given the emergency COVID declaration? Does that give us even more leeway in that kind of legal, if it were to come to a legal issue?
Candidly, I believe if it were to come to a legal issue, the statute of limitations would probably have already run on that. However, there has been various relaxation of rules at the state level regarding hearing and notice provisions. I'm not aware of one that specifically applies to this one, but again, I've not looked into it.
I'll move approval of item 10A.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
And motion carries unanimously with Hinsey absent. We will go get her. I'm going to go grab Kelly.
Moving on to item 10B, which is another public hearing and consideration of adopting Parks and Recreation user fee adjustments and establishing the pass-through of actual credit, debit card transactions and recreation software processing fees and annual CPI adjustments. And for this item, we will be hearing from the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts, Travis Carlin.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of council. I'm here tonight to present on the proposed fees for the Parks and Recreation Department. In 2020 and 2021, the city hired a consultant for a citywide fee study. On August 11th, 2021, the city fee study was presented to council. At the time, we placed the Parks and Recreation fees on hold due to COVID-19, and I felt that we needed to do additional outreach to our user groups. The last update to the field fees, special events, outdoor facilities, and community use was on October of 1998. The last update to our community and senior center fees was January 2002, and the last update to our library fees was in February of 2008. On February 9th, we reviewed the fees and updated figures with our finance team. And in February through April, we finalized proposed fee recommendations to bring forward. And through April, we continued meetings and correspondence with our various user groups. On May 2nd, we held a special meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission for individuals to come and speak on this item. And the commission brought forward a proposal that you're reviewing tonight. Just a little glimpse for the public on how we're funded. 24% of property tax assessments are allocated to the city of Encinitas. Less than 4% of property tax revenue is allocated to Parks and Recreation. $8.2 million or 9% of the 2022-23 general fund budget was allocated to our department. And of that, the 2022-23 Parks Division and Rec Division, that doesn't include our admin or our cultural arts, budgets are combined for $5.6 million and approximately 6% of the city's general fund. What is our funding used for? We used our funding for parks, beaches, trails, maintenance and improvements, recreation facility maintenance and improvements, planning and design, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, contract recreation program instructor payments, service and maintenance contracts, full-time and part-time staff, community partnerships, senior services, and special events. The methodology that was used for the fee study was that we hired Wilden Financial Services in 2021 to perform a citywide fee study. The fee study found that Parks and Recreation fees were, there was a direction to set the fees discretionally based on usage characteristics, policy goals, and benchmarks. A benchmark of other municipalities and school districts in the region was conducted. Nominal fee increases were implemented for most categories to raise the cost recovery in line with inflation. Other factors that we considered were the exclusive use of time of public space and non-resident considerations. So what I mean by the exclusive use of time is there are times when we allocate space for special events or activities that actually take away from normal user groups. So I'll give you an example. We have an event that's a 3-day event out at Encinitas Community Park. That event, because it takes up 3 days on our multi-purpose field, it takes away from the user group that normally uses that space out at Encinitas Community Park. The results from the 2021 study were updated recently to reflect the current conditions. Our timeline moving forward is we're bringing the proposal to you tonight to be considered. Upon approval, the fees would be implemented with the exception of athletic field use fees and recreation program miscellaneous fees like cancellation fees, non-resident fees, and other registration fees. And then in fall 2023, we would be implementing the recreation programming fees along with our fall catalog, and then implementation of the athletic field use fees on January 1st of 2024 with your first CPI increase on July 1st of 2024. So the recommendation before you tonight is to adopt the Parks and Recreation user fees as recommended by the Parks and Recreation Commission with the addition of cancellation fees for recreation programs. Number 2 is adopt the establishment of pass-through of actual credit card or debit card transaction processing fees and permit processing fees to the registration software effective July 1st, 2023. Third is to adopt a fee adjustment each fiscal year by the Consumer Price Index of the San Diego region for the prior calendar year. The CPI will be adjusted as needed to reflect operational changes beginning July 1st, 2024, and on the first day of each July afterward. And finally, approve the City Council Resolution number 2023-59, titled A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Encinitas, amending the Parks and Recreation user fees. And I'm available for any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Well, I forgot to mention that there are procedures for public hearings, and we, I think, all know them. So when I ask you to disclose any other information they have that you've received that is not included in the staff report, you'll know what to do.
Nothing to disclose.
Nothing to disclose.
Nothing to disclose.
Nothing to disclose.
And I have nothing to disclose, so that brings us to preliminary questions. And I see no council members requesting to speak, so with that, we will go to the opening of the public hearing and hear from the public.
Okay, we do have 4 speakers. George Heidick, followed by Tiana Heidick, John Bandy, and then Micah Barley.
This is what happens when you come before you guys for 35-plus years, you end up crippled.
Has it been 35 years?
Yep. Let me get going here, Tony. Get my glasses on. Good evening, council members. George Hayter, Cardiff by the Sea. For the past 37 years, this city, under at times dubious leadership involving various elected or appointed city council members, to include mayors, have found it essential to pilfer the taxpaying citizens' treasury of countless millions of dollars, all in the name of progress. This list includes suspicious consulting fees, extravagant out-of-house law firm costs, dumbfounding studies that went nowhere to eventually be canned, to name several past endeavors, but money has always been found. Let's not forget the recent invasion of highly visible, numerous painted bicycle lanes with their associated barricades encompassing the entire city. Have you driven along the line traffic maze between Swami's and Chesterfield Drive on 101? What a design calamity, an accident waiting to occur. It's difficult to believe that you actually pay for that plan. To quote an Encinitas resident, Jack Drown, recently published in the San Diego Union Tribune, never has so much been spent on so few for such little use. By the way, how many of you present tonight rode your bicycles, or for that matter, the new menace e-bikes to this meeting? Speaking of e-bikes, They are akin to mopeds or small motorcycles, but require no driving test or related state or city license fees. Congratulations, Bike Lobby. Your bike lane expansion, with its associated road narrowing, has led to extremely dangerous conditions involving driving. Just ask people. Amazingly, you seemingly have found the money to do all of this. Now, all of a sudden, you find it imperative to suggest that numerous youth sports in this city pay an hourly fee for the use of our public parks. I'm positive from what you spend each year to run the city, your financially astute accounting department can find many ways to manipulate revenue to keep our fabulous youth sports programs free of field charges, or as the San Marcos High School rowdy rooters used to yell at bogus referees calls, nuts and bolts. Nuts and bolts. We got screwed. Let's hope that you are not going to vote to screw our youth sport programs with fees. If so, shame on you. Oh, by the way, are you charging bike clubs for the use of your newly striped lanes? Thank you.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Tiana Hayduck. I represent San Diego Youth Softball. Many of you have known I coach. I've been a coach for many years in the league, and I have many questions. And for me, up until this point, we haven't been charging. The Parks and Recs hasn't charged anybody any fees, and it's worked. Being a coach in our league, I know in the past several years, with the new addition of more housing and more people coming and living here, our fields are limited, all right? We have 4 softball fields in the city of Encinitas that are being used. So I'm gonna be specific to softball. In that time, we have to compete with soccer, youth soccer, football, lacrosse. Micah, help me out here. Rugby. There's many more sports competing on these fields that are very limited. My biggest concern as a coach is if we are going to be charged fees, right? Our little youth softball league generates not a lot of money. This year, we had the biggest turnout in spring ball. So say, for instance, 350 kids come back and sign up in fall ball. According to fee schedules, we're going to have to pay close to $50,000 a year for what we need during that time for our little softball players. We don't generate that much money. So does youth softball go out because now we're competing with people that can afford to pay? I think this is a travesty. It's something that we need to kind of really think about before we say yes to voting on charging youth sports, youth teams, field space. Because again, other sports have more money. You talk about travel softball, you talk about soccer in our community, and you guys all know, I love soccer. My brother was a pro player, but we had the opportunity to play. And if we don't have enough room because we're competing with other people because they have the money to do so, like, I just don't want to see certain sports, like softball, for instance, that we have 4 fields on, go away because we're competing with other people. And it's something to think about. Are we going to regulate field space, right? So if we have the field space, are you going to come over and say, hey, soccer, you can't be on our fields? So it doesn't become public anymore. It becomes private when we start paying for things. Up until this point, we've all been pretty amicable with each other. We've all been pretty friendly, but it's getting a little bit more and more compacted. And as we add more housing to this area, we don't have field space. So it kind of breaks my heart that we're even like talking about this, especially when taxpayers, we pay for this kind of stuff. So learn to allocate the money and don't do this. Don't just say no, just stop.
Next is John Bandy, followed by Micah Barley.
When I was here last time, y'all were doing smiley face with the folks from the Del Mar Fair. if anybody wants to take their children to the Del Mar Fair, they're going to be spending probably $18 for a hot dog. If you all check and see what it costs for a concert ticket, say at Humphreys, and then check the same performer who's going to be in Austin, Texas, or in Virginia or Tampa, Florida, you're going to see that same performer is half. And you go, why? Well, the 22nd Agricultural District is a quasi-governmental organization, the Port District. These are all California government maws that we find ways to feed and snorkel up money for. This is just another one. We do smiley face with these little girls that we're trying to support. We go out and say, we want to do something for the youth. But when we have a back channel way to charge so that these kids have to pay more money, or all these dedicated volunteers do just such a great job, we're going to go, no, we're going to charge you. We're going to charge $50,000. My friends in Carlsbad I talked about said something about you all gave all the city employees $2,500 apiece to get a COVID shot. I know that's a lie. I know you didn't do that. That's just Carlsbad talking. But you're going to charge these little girls 300, 400 of them? We're in? We're going to remember this. We're going to come in here. You charge these little girls. You charge these volunteers. This is something you should support, not something you should snorkel up any money you can get for. You need to support this, and you need to shut this down. And by the way, when you spend the money for these surveys, did anybody check what they're doing in Texas or Florida or Virginia or other places? Or it's just other little operations in California where they don't support things?
Speak to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, esteemed mayor, council members. My name is Micah Bailey. I have been on the board, vice president and a coach in SDYS for the last 3 years. This is my second year serving as a tournament director for our upcoming annual Memorial Day tournament, which we'll be hosting this weekend. The board, parents, volunteers are at this moment making undertaking last-minute efforts to prepare for our tournament that we hold each year. We'll host 68 teams this year, which is the most in a very long time, and it's because our tournament has become one of the most popular girls softball tournaments in the state. As the council is aware, we're run purely by volunteers. We operate on an absolute shoestring budget. We derive most of our revenues from the tournament that we hold annually this weekend. And we host athletes whose ages range from 6 to 14. For me personally, and on behalf of the board of SDYS, we implore you not to impose these fees on our league. We feel that we can try to increase the cost and pass it down onto the girls and their families. But the fact is, there are other leagues in the general vicinity. We draw from other cities, and those children, those parents send their kids to our league. We're experiencing right now a significant growth in our league. Our numbers have almost doubled in the last 3 years. We need field space. We need more field space. We need to foster this great program that we're building. And from our volunteers and the excitement from our kids, we don't need to tax the kids. So at the end of the day, I just ask the city to really, really consider. We understand that it takes money to maintain the fields, and we're appreciative of the efforts from the city. Everyone who works on those fields from the city, we appreciate it. I'm out there almost every day, as is Tiana. So it's not that we're not appreciative of the city, but we know that you could please find the money somewhere else. It's not money that we can afford. Thank you.
And then Elena Thompson has registered opposition to the recommended action but does not wish to speak. And that concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ehlers.
Yeah, I had several questions. First, the comment about have we been charging or not been charging San Diego youth sports softball?
So San Diego Youth Softball qualifies for a zero-cost field, so we have not been charging them a fee.
And then under the proposed numbers, what would the annual, for their operation they've been running, what would it be running? Would it be running $50,000?
So we actually have some cost estimates here on what it would cost each of our groups. They are correct. If they followed the same allocation schedule that they did in previous years, we would see approximately $40,000 to $50,000 for an annual cost for that league.
Any chance you can kind of take us through the staff report and show us what line item times? That just seems like, from the small numbers we see here, amplified into that seems surprising to me, so.
So I actually put together here a fee benchmark. So you'll see here that recreational programs, that would be recreational programs that are over 70% residency, which San Diego Youth Softball does qualify for. They would be charged a $5 per hour fee, and then $10 if they were using lights. And so we based that figure off of their actual use from 2022. And then there would be a $5 non-resident fee. And we charge non-resident fees across the board for all of our programs and all of our services that we do in our Parks and Recreation Department. So you'll see here, if they were to go over to the school district, they'd be paying $40 to $48 per hour, $25 additionally with lights, and then they don't charge a per player fee. But you can see the other cities that are surrounding us and what they're charging for the different services there. San Diego Youth Softball also have competitive leagues, so they would fall into the competitive category down here. That would be a $10 an hour per fee per. And I'm just going to state this. That's a typo. It should be $12 right here. So $12, and then it would be $17 with lights, and then per player would be a $5 non-resident. And you'll see the comparison here as we move along between the school district, Vista, Escondido, Carlsbad, and such. So Carlsbad does charge quite a hefty rate for competitive teams to play in their city. They do not charge a per hour rate for non-resident, for their resident groups. However, they do charge a per hour light fee.
Can I get clarification on one thing? When you said competitive teams, is that club softball, or is that the youth softball that we're talking about here?
Thank you, Mayor. That would be any teams that hold tryouts to be a member of the team, or they have paid management that are paid to coach or be on the board.
And SDYSO is all volunteer coaches, and none of the players, every player that signs up is on a team, is placed on a team through a draft or something to that effect. And the players, they try out, but it's only to get a competitive sense so that when you pick teams, they are not imbalanced. There's a goal to try and make it as balanced as possible.
So it'd be like the youth sports fall and spring would be like your recreation, your $5 up there, but any all-star where you're competing.
Well, yeah, that's out of the players that played in the regular season. Yes. But, okay, so SDYSO is not a competitive. I mean, you compete, yes, but you're not an exclusive membership group.
No, but so we have 3 seasons: fall, spring, all-stars. All-stars would be held under that competitive thing.
Would it?
That is correct. Yes.
Why did we make that distinction?
That's typically what's done. It's best practices in most cities. You'll see that all of the cities surrounding us have a competitive fee for travel teams. Where not everybody plays, there's tryouts that are held, paid management. That is the industry standard.
Okay, I'm surprised that a league that produces an all-star team fits in that category. So that's a little surprising, because these are young athletes that have excelled, and there's a group tournament. The Little League All-Stars, go to Williamsport, and that's just part of the league. That's what many players are aspiring to do, is make the all-star team, as opposed to the category you show up there that says competitive, which is where you get invited to come try out, and then the premise of that whole thing, and you're paying coaches or fees, can be very expensive. So I'm sorry.
The
Okay. Councilmember Hensy.
So I also grew up as a softball player with the San Diego Youth Softball League, and I was not so talented as Tiana. I was very scrawny and often, but I kept showing up year after year. I had a lot of heart, and my talent was getting walked. I had a good eye. So my question is this concern that the Youth Girls League would get priced out because we would have other competitors to be able to pay more. Can you speak a little bit to that concern and how we can protect against that?
Sure. So we are looking at our field allocation policy right now, and we will be bringing that back to council later on this year. That policy really dictates how we allocate fields, and it's not just who can pay or how many people you have in your group. We also do a balance and equity and make sure that all sports are being represented in the city. We go off of historical use in our city. And the speaker is right. Our youth sports organizations play very well in the sandbox. We actually just had our allocation meeting, and they're very good about sharing field space and making sure that field space is available for all.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Lyons.
So another couple questions on the details. One of the things that you and we had a debrief, like all the city council members and the mayor do before these meetings, and I felt like it was very detailed. And so much of what you're explaining, I feel like I understand. What I want to say though is. What I like the best about what this proposal is that you've added a cancellation fee for the programs. Now, I want to kind of shine a light on that because it's my understanding that without a cancellation fee, oftentimes a field will get reserved, but then all of a sudden it's not used. And so the team doesn't show up, or for one reason or another, things happen. And also, we're experiencing, as a result of that, but maybe a combination of things, that we're not getting the best utilization of our available field space. And one of the things that I think we're doing by putting something like cancellation fees is that we're really trying to maximize for everyone the ability to get on the field. So I'm hoping that what we can do is eliminate the fields that are unexpectedly not used and make sure that everyone, there's the carrot and the stick, so the cancellation fee is the stick, but make sure that we give people that good incentive to show up or to not commit until they know for sure. Can you reflect on that a little bit? Because that was one thing I wanted to highlight.
Thank you, Councilmember Lyons. I did want to clarify that we're not suggesting a cancellation fee for youth sports organizations, but by charging a fee, our hope is that they are much more conscious when they're making the reservations to reserve actual space that they're using. There's a number of times that I leave the city or go by a field in the evening, and there's nobody on the field. And I know that there's a need for field space, so I call our supervisor and say, who's supposed to be on this field tonight? Or there's lights on the field. Who's supposed to be on the field tonight? And there is somebody allocated to that field, but they're not there. So we're just hoping that with this, they're also a little bit more considerate on when they're making their field reservation requests. But if people are interested in giving field space back, we don't want to punish them because we can give that to another league.
Yeah, I hope we can get better and have the right processes in place that work for everyone, where we can get the maximum use out of our fields. They're very valuable. There's not that many. I do want to ask you about a term you used, zero cost. They've been in the designation as a zero cost league. That is not something we're carrying forward. Is that correct?
No, for those that normally were charged $0, they're now would be charged the $5 per hour fee.
And is that $5 per person or per?
That is per field. So if you have a team that's going out there to practice or play a game, it'd be $5 for the entire team or the entire practice.
And I know Councilmember Ehlers asked this question, but I'm still maybe you're doing better at this than I am, but I'm still having trouble seeing how that all adds up to $50,000 or slightly under a year.
Sure. So let me just pull up my sheet here. got what they did last year. So for San Diego Youth Softball, for spring 2022, I'm sorry, I just have the non-resident rate here in front of me. So they used, for all of 2022, they had 520 participants. So 149 of those would be non-residents, so they'd be charged that $5 non-resident fee. But as far as their annual hours that they had 586 hours for recreational leagues, and then they had 4,740 for annual hours for their competitive leagues. And then they also had 205 hours of lights for recreation and 1,656 hours for competitive for lights. So that multiplied by those fees comes to approximately $50,000.
That's just for softball. It's not for all sports. You make up all the sports, it's a lot of money.
So I'm not really sure if I have additional questions right now, so I'll pass to a colleague, whoever's next.
So just to follow up on that, so $5 per hour for a field, and it's a game. So is that $250 per team that's going to pay per hour?
So it would be for the field allocation. So generally, if San Diego Youth Softball is out there, they have teams that are playing against each other, so they'd basically pay the $5 for the league. It would come from the league.
Sounds like an accounting nightmare.
It's actually not. It actually works up quite well. Our ActiveNet software, we can put all the rates in, and it actually allocates it per the permit.
Councilmember Blackwell.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up on Councilmember Lyons' train of thought there. I think, in general, when we talked about the fees, it seems so reasonable. They had not been raised since 1998. The cost recovery, even with the raised fees for the city, is rather low. I feel like I'm an echo here, sorry. So that makes sense to me, but then when you take a real-life example, like we're talking about right now with the softball league, I'm having a really hard time understanding how we go from zero to $50,000. And I can see that could be viewed as quite a hardship. So has the staff thought about this in terms of a phased approach or some, I'll just stop there and say, were there considerations, and are there other leagues that were $0 or zero cost?
Yes. Our leagues have evolved a bit over the last years. When I came in, nobody was being charged, and as they've evolved, there are different leagues that have fallen into categories that should be charged right now, regardless of if we adopt new fees tonight or not. So we were waiting until we brought this forward to the City Council to basically start fresh with that. One of the things that we did determine is that we would like to give the leagues at least 6 months to adjust to this. So that's why we weren't going to implement them until January of 2024. Other things that you could consider is you could say, nope, we're just gonna use the residency number, and we're gonna do either the $5 or the $10 fee and do away with the competitive altogether. We could do that. So there are options out there.
Okay, thanks. I think let's see if I can form my thoughts here. It does feel like, and are there other leagues that are still zero cost?
Yes, all of them right now
All
are
of them
paying
okay.
zero for your youth sports organizations.
Okay, I'll think about that.
Councilmember Ehlers.
Yeah, continuing on same line of questioning. In the report, we talked about, or your report talks about $125,000 in revenue in this fiscal year, going up to $250,000 incremental revenue next year. I'm trying to understand now the magnitude of the SDYSO relative to all the other sports out there. If they're going to be $50,000 out of the $125,000, are they using that percentage of our outdoor out of all our fees? There's something not adding up to me here. 50,000 was much larger than I expected, and it doesn't comport with the 125, 250,000 in the report. So help me here. Something's still not connected for me.
Sure. So remember, San Diego Youth Softball is one of our largest youth sports organizations in town. We have a couple of youth sports organizations that are quite small. One of them is Pop Warner Football. They're very small. We also have Mustang Lacrosse, and then also our rugby group. Those all three make up a very small chunk of our field allocations here in Encinitas. So our major teams here in our major groups here in Encinitas are Encinitas Express, San Diego Youth Softball. We also have Cardiff Soccer, which is kind of middle of the road. So when you take the really small groups and then pair them with that, that's where you get that number.
Okay. So the Express and those, are they using similar numbers of hours, field hours? I think you were mentioning 5,000, 6,000 times the $5 or $10 an hour. That's how you're getting up into this $30,000 cost.
Right. So Encinitas Express, for example, they're probably using about 6,000 hours of field space a year.
Okay. And I assume we're 100% subscribed for field space in particular.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Are we 100% subscribed? In other words, is there any downtime in the field, or are there the sports, different sports, taking up all of our current fields?
I would say about 95% of our field space is allocated. We do have some times that we've offered to youth sports organizations, but they're not prime time or times that they would want to use.
Okay, yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm surprised at that number. So what it tells me is the softball is it's an organization on par with what I'm experiencing with AYSO and then Express. So I can see that. So, wow.
Can I say too, sorry, I know I'm out of context here, but when we play and practice, sometimes, and no offense to you, but
Tiana, can you come up and speak to the microphone?
Thank you.
The public hearing is still open.
sorry. So I'm just talking in context with softball, right? When we have 4 fields, right, we are utilizing them with other sports. So there's soccer playing or football playing. So me as a coach, I need my kids to hit a ball. We can't because the soccer players are out there and we're being amicable. Everyone's using the fields nicely. So I go, hey, girls, we can't hit today out into the outfield, right? So my big question is, if we're going to pay for it, do I get 4 fields of softball? Or do I share a field with soccer or football or lacrosse like we've been having to do? It's been nice, and we're all like, all the coaches are kind of told like, hey, be respectful of the other teams playing in the outfield. But for me, if we're going to be paying for this, that's going to bring up a different problem for us. We have 4 softball fields. Well, should we put in fences? Right? Like, so that we have a full field, because again, we're sharing with this.
Okay,
and
thank
so
you.
again, you're going to be charging soccer and softball
All right.
for the space. I'm
Yes,
just
ma'am.
bringing up points that kind of.
What? Yes, the city manager has a question for you, Tiana.
Oh, could I just ask you one more question? So it's entirely free for the softball league, so the kids play for free?
Oh, no.
Okay, so you do charge a fee?
So we charge a fee. However, all of the money that goes into this, again, like another community member said, we're known as like the fun softball league. We have other people that come into our league because we have great volunteers and people, like we
you don't pay the coaches.
No, we don't pay the coaches. So that's something where that competitive fee falls into, right? Like,
I got you.
Okay, like that's like your Ohana softball where it's a travel team. Those people pay. But yes, girls pay.
How much do they pay
So
per season, or?
$180 a season, and we would have to, yes, well, 3 seasons, yeah. And All-Stars this year, we had to charge girls $300 to play All-Stars. Okay, so that all goes back to, well, now it will be field space if you vote yes, but it goes back to equipment. It goes back to umpire fees. it goes back to all the league.
Uniforms.
Uniforms. We're not, it's not like we're sitting on, we will not have $50,000, A, and secondly, we will have to charge people way more. So what happens is or people that come, maybe I'm not gonna play softball this season. So I am so happy that our league has grown, but with this, it's a big like, oh, what are we gonna do? And volunteers, we all work. Now we're gonna have to fundraise. Now we're gonna have to raise prices for
Okay.
people to play. So
Thank you.
that's where.
So,
Ask one question, just take 2 seconds, I promise. And it's just the data thank you.
Come to the mic.
It's Micah Bailey. The data we have is from San Marcos and Carlsbad. We polled their boards, and they informed us that they don't pay. So I'm not sure if there's a distinction between the travel, like the AAU type of teams that do pay, and the rec. We are a rec league. Okay, we do have all-stars, but we're our basis, our bread and butter is rec. And that's what I wonder if there's a distinction between the Carlsbad payments that were mentioned in the report and rec teams. That's all I'd ask.
thank you. So, hold on. Hey, George. Okay, now with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank you. So I have a few questions. One, as I look at the staff report, ton of data here you have provided for us. I'm sure that Bruce dove in there. But one of the things that it's not clear to me on some of these spreadsheets which ones of these are absolutely new. Now, like you get down to page 12 of the staff report, and you see athletic field use permit, resident youth group, recreational sports, non-competitive, 70% resident, hourly, is current fee 0. Current cost recovery, no lights, 0. Current full cost recovery, no lights, 140. And so these are 0, and then the proposal to go to those fees. There are some who have a current fee of 20, so going up to the top of that page where it says facility uses fees, youth recreation leagues, blah, blah, blah. Current fee, $20. That's a cost recovery of 7%, because the full cost recovery would be $269, and I think our analysts figured all that out, right?
Correct.
And so we're going from a 7% cost recovery to a 9% is what's proposed.
So what you're looking at there, Mayor Kranz, is facility, that would be outdoor facility use.
Right.
So that top one, those would be things like, I wanted to have a picnic out at Moonlight Overlook. So that wouldn't be applicable to athletic fields.
So those are the fees, when I look at that fee, current fee, those are the fees that were set in 1998.
Correct.
Okay. And so here's my goal, and I don't know how to make a motion out of this, but I'll work on it. My goal would be to take only those areas where we currently have a fee, and perhaps instead of only recovering 7, you recover 14%. And so that these organizations and leagues that are currently paying nothing for fields would stay at nothing per field. And the other thing that I want to say is that an organization like a Pop Warner, which historically was here, and a bunch of kids from all over the region, because it was San Diego Pop Warner. One of my teammates in Pop Warner, Bobby Earl back there, he was the fastest running back that you could ever imagine. He and I used to kick around the fields. Great program, a lot of history. I think they're on their 60th anniversary. And so I'm concerned about the percentages that we use, because that's an organization that still has a broad area that it covers in order to bring in people, yet it's still an Encinitas program. So it's a little concerning to me that we're in a position where we may end up hitting that group for the percentage issue, whereas San Diego Youth Softball, pretty local, all the little leagues have residential requirements. There are actually 2 little leagues in Encinitas. And so the way these sports are organized is different. And so I am concerned about what happens with the Pop Warner program, which is now La Costa Canyon, La Costa Youth Sports. So something that I'm not sure in this context is where we should be taking that up. I don't know if you've heard from them lately. They were working on that. And that was mostly in a field allocation context, not so much on fees, maybe because they were always free. But that would be my desire, is to see the zeros stay zero. Do we have any idea how that would affect things?
The revenue would probably be in about $30,000 for total recreation fees at that point. One other thing to clarify is that we have had groups that now fall into a range where they would be paying a fee based on our current fees. So for instance, we only have 3 groups in this city that actually have over 70% residency. We held off charging them until we brought this forward, but the fee that's in the current fees, or in the current fees right now, are about $4 per hour for those groups that are falling below that 70% residency. So I guess we would need some clarification on that as well, if we will move forward and charge them that or not.
City manager would like to speak.
So, a couple of things. So one of the reasons why cities charge fees for field use is because there is upkeep and grooming, et cetera, of the field use. So if we don't charge fees, somebody else pays the fee because it comes out of the general fund, et cetera. So I understand that people don't want to pay fees, but I don't know that I want to encourage you to raise other people's fees because one group came here tonight and doesn't want to pay fees, with all due respect. I wonder if if we could go back and sharpen our pencils rather than taking action on this tonight. And so if this fee is too high, might we be able to work with the group? Because I think there are fees in other cities. Our manager is from Carlsbad. So they do charge fees in Carlsbad, but it doesn't really matter what Carlsbad does. So at some point, we have to look at the future of how it is we're going to maintain everything that we have. So I'm wondering if there's some fee that we can charge, and maybe it grows over time to give groups a chance that didn't pay anything, but it is highly unusual to not have any fees at all for people to use the fields. It's another thing that happens in government, that there's just not enough money to come in to do everything that you want to do. So if we give up here, I just want you to be aware that you have to find that $100 and whatever $1,000 somewhere else. So might we sharpen our pencils and bring something back?
Yep, and I would say that it is the way it is because of the ethic that previous councils have had, that they wanted to make certain as many people played as possible. In these leagues, no one is getting these leagues. There are some very well-paid club coaches. I'm aware of that because I paid a lot of their salaries. So I have a lot of respect for these leagues that still have volunteer coaches and volunteer managers, and so there's that. And if you're talking about a difference between a 7% recovery and a 14% recovery, I guess the question is, for me, am I trying to, and I hate to use his term because it's pretty derogatory, and in fact, we are expected by the taxpayers to be good stewards of their money, but snarking up money from people. People are using city facilities that the taxpayers pay for. And so those taxpayers who don't have any kids playing softball are paying for softball players, essentially. They're providing these facilities. And do I think that's good? I'm prepared to do that. I don't have any kids playing sports anymore, but I'm willing to pay that. But not everybody is. And so one of the things that we have to do is we have to kind of figure out what is the right number? How do we balance this out so that, and one of the questions would be, do we set up a scholarship program so that we make sure that every kid that wants to play ball can play ball? Because there, in fact, are people in our community that are not affluent. Frankly, the majority of the people in our city are affluent. And so, not that we begrudge that. It's just that these fields, keeping and maintaining them cost money. So I'm trying to thread the needle here between not hitting leagues like yours with this fee that's going to clearly be significant in the world that you're in, and yet still acknowledge that the fields, we don't maintain these fields for free. They cost us money. So, Deputy Mayor Lyons.
So since we haven't raised our fees in so long, we're actually continuing to foster the budgetary condition where Parks and Rec needs to draw more money from a general fund to continue to provide the fields in a good shape and in good condition for the leagues to use. So in a way, as far as accounting, as far as budgets, that's not an approach we can continue, in my view. But I think there is a future here where we need to balance what the fees are without one entity, especially a youth league, bearing an unusual and somewhat enormous brunt of the cost. And I like the idea that we table this so that staff can take some direction today and consider how this could be revised to also thinking about what we already have in place, because some of these leagues are going to be starting to be charged anyway. So that's already going to be happening. I would rather charge people who use facilities based on what this proposal is. I mean, just based on how people use our public facilities, generally, that total cost in a year, if someone uses a facility on a regular basis, is going to be much smaller than the cost to this one league. So I wanted to make a motion to table this and come back with some other solutions, and I wanted to give us slightly more information. It sounds like field sharing is something that happens in a response to how that would change, or how that would be accommodated in how we manage the teams. It's happening informally, it sounds like, so that would be something to help clarify.
Yes, we do have to clarify that a bit because our current policy does not allow for field sharing. Occasionally, we do have field or groups that will go out and use the fields that are not permitted. So we have to check into that a little bit more.
And as far as the CPI interest increase each year, I think we want to step a little more gingerly forward with this and not apply that at this time, even though that may be how we need to think about it in the future. But it seems like this is going to be more of an impact than I might have originally thought. So maybe make this decision, then reevaluate in a year or so. And I don't know where I stand on the credit fees, but it seems like that then adds just more to the hourly and per player fees that we were already totaling up. So I guess I want to be a little more slow moving into this fee adoption. That's where I stand.
I'll second the motion too.
To what? Table it?
To table it
You get staff direction.
yeah, but I'll second it with some additional discussion, and hopefully I'll see if I get a few more questions, comments. So I think you addressed the shared use, and my experience with AYSO back in the day when I coached was we always had other teams working halfway in our field, and we got along, So question is, would our policy mean if you pay for it, you get the whole field and dedicated to you, or not?
That's correct. When you pay for the whole field, you get the whole field.
Okay, so we got an answer to that, and that would be in a future plan. can we choose as a council to waive fees for certain classes? In other words, we could set up this, but we could choose certain thresholds or classes of leagues. You see that as a possibility?
You have the ability to waive fees, yes.
Okay, great. Now I want to talk about competitive versus amateur, or whatever you want to call it. I coached in AYSO. A buddy of mine was the commissioner. I remember the trouble he had, just making ends meet, but nobody paid in that league. It was huge. It was La Costas, it was Carlsbad, but it had, I think, more Encinitas players in it than it had Carlsbad. To me, the difference between competitive leagues and amateur leagues is the paid coaches. And the reason I draw, always did in my mind, the distinction being that is a business with paid coaches. This is volunteers in a local group, no different than Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, et cetera. And so I would throw that out to this group to give direction that that's how I would make the differentiation, as opposed to competitive is, it's really whether or not you pay the coaches, whether or not somebody is actively making money on that league. So
I think you run into a little bit of a challenge because sometimes it isn't easy to identify whether they're being paid. That's whose business is that? How do we find? How do we verify that? And tryouts is a different thing. So.
Yeah. Well, and maybe we set up. I guess what I'm asking is that Parks and Rec look at that, and perhaps it's got to do with more. AYSO is the same way. Everybody participates. So when you describe your league, it's exactly my experience. And that was the true difference between competitive and amateur, learning the sport and having fun. So.
Well, I believe they already have a program for identifying competitive, which is a category on this spreadsheet.
So right. I guess the question is when you were talking with the SDYSS or YSO, okay. You had one in each in competitive and one in non-competitive and competitive, and were the coaches, and you can just nod yes or no since both, were the coaches in the competitive paid or not paid? No, okay. So I guess my direction, and I don't know if the rest of the council will join me, is can we find a way in those definitions to put both of their non-paid leagues in the lower rate? That's where I'm going. And then it sounds like we would have the ability to, in certain cases, waive it. And in my opinion, it would be for a high percentage of Encinitas residents, whether it's 75 or something, and it's non-paid, it's a amateur group, and and I don't know if there are other criteria you'd put in there too. So I think that's it.
And
Councilmember
could I-
Blackwell.
Oh, excuse me. I was going to clarify the motion is, are you actually tabling the item or are you continuing the public hearing?
Yeah, my recommendation would be just to continue the public hearing to a
Yes.
date uncertain.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you. Yes, continue.
Okay, I'm going to say I support continuing the public hearing. And I also support the overall fee increase, but I really like the idea of doing more of a phased approach. I had talked with staff just about some concerns with the CPI increase every year, and I think it took us so long to raise the fees or even implement fees, because I didn't realize how many leagues didn't have any fee today, that it does hit hard, and it hits hard on the players, and it hits hard on the parents too. And I know we have an affluent community, but nobody wants to get a bad surprise there, and it will cause players to drop out. So I'd like to just see a longer phase of doing it, but I am really supportive of doing it, because when you look at this chart that's displayed, we're still low, even if we went all the way to what you're recommending. So I think we need to at least take that into consideration and stay, again, good stewards of our city.
Councilmember Hensy.
Yeah, I was basically going to suggest that phased approach as well. It seems like a shock to the system for having gone so long without fees to all of a sudden charge these organizations to build an entire budget around the new fees in just a single 6-month period. And I do think, when I was playing softball, even for high school, we always did an element of fundraising. But to be doing those fundraising programs definitely takes building the volunteer capacity and figuring out what those programs are. So my hope is that we can give them a little bit more time to develop that than just implement it at the beginning of the new year.
I see challenges with the notion of a waiver of fees. I don't know, the mechanics of that. Maybe other leagues or maybe other cities have already figured that out. But, for I'm interested in making sure that we maximize certain programs. And, the softball league is one. There are others, Little League. I don't know, are we charging Little League fees?
So currently, none of our youth sports organizations
None
are
of
paying
youth
any
sports
fees.
organizations. And that's because youth sports, helps to develop good human beings, good citizens. And so we want to encourage that in every way that we can. So we are continuing, the motion is to continue the public hearing.
To a date certain.
To a date certain. Okay. What time do you think you need? June 20th?
Travis, does June 28th work for you?
June 28th does work, yes.
So the motion would be to continue the public hearing to a date certain of June 28th and bring back additional information based on council discussion and comments.
Sounds like you captured it, yes.
And I'm good seconding that too.
That motion does carry unanimously.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you all for coming out to speak. Item 10C, HCD's Permanent Local Housing Allocation Award in the amount of $665,494, and a budget amendment to appropriate funds for the Homeless Action Plan Implementation Work Project. Our contact people today are Senior Planner Dacey and Homeless Solutions Manager Gonzalez, except I don't see Homeless Solutions Manager Gonzalez. I see Director of Development Services Roy Sapau, and I'm sorry, you'll have to introduce yourself.
Planning Manager Patty Anders.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? I think this is fairly brisk piece. I think we could probably knock out the next couple without much haste.
Mayor, we do not have any public speakers right now.
No public speakers on either one of the C and D?
Well, we do have one, actually. She hasn't put in a speaker slip yet.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We have a C public speaker. Brief presentation, please.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the public. Melinda Dacey, the staff planner that prepared the report for you this evening. I wanted to provide some quick backgrounds. On November 16th, we came to City Council to request authorization to apply for the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Grant funds. It is a 5-year grant program with the funds starting from 2019 to 2023, so it's somewhat retroactive. We submitted the application in November, received the notice of award in April for the $665,000 grant, and the grant expenditure line items are identified on the screen for the 3 years that we've received grant funding for and the specific activities under the homelessness activity that we made the application for that the funding can be spent for based off of the 5-year plan. And with that, staff recommends that we receive the grant award amount and that council adopt the resolution to conduct a budget adjustment to receive the grant funds. And this concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. And I see no request to speak, so I'd like to hear from the public speakers.
Elena Thompson?
Okay, this is getting to be like a rerun. Hi again, we're saving the best for last, and I'm your final public speaker, so I'll make it real quick. this is a topic that's really important to me because I went to college in UC Santa Barbara, and I used to holiday in Santa Cruz all the time, and I've seen those two towns really overcome by the homeless and failed policies to address them. So this is really important. And as I've said before in the March and April meeting, I'm here as a resident and a citizen to help you all and provide some guideposts, okay? So thank you for the opportunity. Now, I was involved back when the HAP got approved in 2021, and that was kind of, remember, that was a state mandate that we had, every city in California has to have a homeless action plan. And so that got approved in February during COVID. And there were quite a few people that were concerned about it, and you maybe read about that in my letter. Did you get my letter? I didn't submit it through the new app thing, but I will next time. And so it was controversial. And the main thing I want to caution you all of is that staff is advancing the homeless action plan, kind of like a train just going down the tracks. And you may be pushing it along to a certain extent, and I think that's good. You know, we need to really solve this problem, but it is intractable and it's not going to be easy to solve. And the main thing is the homeless action plan, I want to just point out, had flawed numbers. The numbers were regional, and they encompassed a large part of San Diego. And the plan, I've written plenty of business plans, I can tell you, this was a cut and copy and paste in Encinitas, 92024, and the other zip codes where appropriate. It really wasn't custom to our community. Wrong numbers, wrong solutions based on the wrong numbers. And yet we're now advancing those solutions and coming up with Band-Aids to patch up this wound based on a homeless action plan that I would question. And Tony, I liked what you said at the April meeting. You said we need to make sure that these items are really the right items for our city. So that was good. And you also said that you wanted to have a community conversation, and I fear that this is moving along rather quickly like a freight train on a track, and the community hasn't fully been involved. No one's even here. People don't even know about this, and yet we've seen every other city in California have dire consequences from the homeless, and people are expecting, that we won't have those same problems. So I'm just cautioning you and waving the flag in advance. Let's get this right again. So I was heartened to hear that there are going to be more meetings, and I'm going to announce this publicly for whoever's listening, that I did see that in June, the Homeless Action Plan is coming back for maybe a conversation or presentation in June 12th. And then June 21st, you're going to be talking about the Navigation Center, which is synonymous with homeless shelter. If I could just have one more minute, please. And a homeless shelter is big, and I was really delighted to hear that the homeless shelter is going to be a regional shelter. It won't be in Encinitas. Is that the case? So that's good news, and I think that really calmed me down because I've had some encounters, and it's scary, just like yours, Tony, and our local coffee roaster, his encounter. So basically, I just think that by approving tonight's PLH grant, which is great, and that brings it up to $1.6 million, your CDBG grant money plus the PLH money, that's a $1.6 million to spend on solving homelessness. So that's a big snowball, and a lot's happening, and the question is, are we ready for that? And I want to make sure that you've read the contract of what exactly you're adopting to resolve tonight and the money you're taking. Have you seen the contract? It wasn't attached to the staff report. The contract on the money you're accepting tonight, how that read. And then secondly, what about car campers?
Thank you.
What about...
Elena, thank you.
Yeah.
We've given you an extra minute. I've given you an extra minute. Thank
no
you
one
very
else
much.
is speaking, so I'm kind
I
of
get
jumping
that.
ahead.
That's why I said, okay, another minute. But
Anyway, there's some other questions to consider, and thank you for considering JFS parking lot, car campers.
Yep.
How are you going to solve
Yep.
that? Thanks.
So, yes, we have a homeless action plan that was adopted, and I think it's working very well. And these resources will go towards continuing to implement that. The millions of dollars that we spend are only a fraction of what is being spent in other jurisdictions. I know Oceanside spends over $5 million on their shelter. Carlsbad spends $8 million. And so overall, we're doing pretty well. And we're actually having some great effect. So I wish Stephen were here tonight so that I could tell him that directly. Hopefully you'll pass along the word that the efforts of Sergeant Wells and the Hope team is having an effect. And our streets are not free of homeless people because that is virtually impossible. And so, but we are not Santa Barbara and we are not Santa Cruz. And so I'm very happy about that. Councilmember Ehlers.
Oh man, I forgot what so the one thing I wanted to bring up is we had our retreat where we set goals, and this in my mind aligns with one of those goals exactly. And the goal was to utilize Housing Solutions Manager to explore solutions for the homeless and unhoused. And that's what this is here for. So that's why I will be supporting it. And, you know, I carry this with me to remind me this is not necessarily my top goal, but it's what we agreed to as a group up here. So this is what I drive to, is our shared goals, and I carry it with me. So, last question was, is there a contract? This is a grant. Do we have to sign a contract in regards to this, or is it just a grant that's been granted under certain criteria, which it has to be used for homeless?
So with the request for application, council also authorized the city manager to sign the standard agreement with HCD. And typically those agreements include reporting requirements or annual reporting requirements. If we need to make an amendment to the grant for any reason, it includes processes on how to do that, as well as other typical things that are included within the standard agreements.
Okay. So, but
We have not yet received it from HCD.
But everything that will be in that will be for the purpose of the document. I had this conversation with Roy, which we need to use it for solving and addressing our homeless and unhoused people and situation. And if
Correct.
Director Sapau wants to speak.
That is correct. When we applied for the grant, we had to specify how the money will be used, and we have to follow that. As Melinda mentioned, that the purpose of the agreement is to specify how a procedure for us if we want to reallocate funds. Anytime we change the allocation, we have to amend the agreement. So the agreement is to hold us to our feet to the fire to say, this is how you're going to spend the money.
The application was the subject of our previous meeting, and that was public document in that staff report that we read through. So
that is correct. That's
I'm
the
comfortable
November
with the purpose.
Yeah.
So.
And to follow up on that, these monies, we're already, this has already been plugged in, and these positions are, at least supportive case management services are all currently, we're employing those people.
Well, so are those dates correct?
They are. The years are, because the grant is it's retroactive to 2019. It's 2019, 2020, 21. So we are getting the funds for those 3 years. We are eligible to reapply for 2022 numbers and 2023 numbers. So we will come forward to the council when we're ready to reapply for those 2 years. But these are the correct data.
Of money we've already spent.
No, money that we are getting.
Okay, I don't get it then, but anyway. But I was going to say, so to the mayor's question, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our supportive case management services, that will be something that's new.
Yes.
We have hired our housing solutions manager who will work cooperatively with supportive case management because one person can't do it all. And then the piece about rapid rehousing and navigation center are two critical pieces which will allow us to offer space to somewhere where folks, right now, we are a part of a regional approach, but there's not always space. This is space that's actually dedicated to Encinitas, not in Encinitas. We won't give you it's in North County. I'm not going to give you anyone, I don't even know the address. So that will be how this program rolls out. So when we say, how are we going to spend the money, this is how we are going to spend the money.
All right, well, I would move that we receive the California Department of Housing and Community Development Permanent Local Housing Allocation Grant Award in the amount of $665,494. And number 2, adopt resolution number 2023-45, titled A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Encinitas amending the fiscal year 2022-23 budget, appropriating permanent local housing allocation grant funds to the Homeless Action Plan Implementation Work Project. And I would call on Deputy Mayor Lyons.
And I was going to make a motion, and it sounded very much like what you just did, so I will second.
Ready to vote?
Yes. I see no other people wanting to speak.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate coming out and speaking, Elena. And with that, we will move on to item 10D. And it is a summary street vacation and dedication of portions of public road right-of-way of California Street and 13th Street located adjacent to Lot 1 of Tract 4485, 1019 Summer Holly Lane, intersecting Rancho Santa Fe Road, and the contact person is Principal Engineer Strizik. And it looks like we also are going to have some support from Director of Development Services, Royce Powell. And I think this needs just a brief presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, and members of the public. I'm Michael Strizik, Principal Engineer for the City of Encinitas Private Development. Tonight I will be presenting item 10D, where the property owners located at 1019 Summer Holly are requesting a street vacation and dedication. The red outline areas on this image here depicts the areas of proposed street easement vacation, and the green area shows the area to be dedicated to the City of Encinitas. California Street and 13th Street are paper streets in which the easements for them were recorded on map 326 dated 1885 as shown on map 11529. The creation and alignment of Rancho Santa Fe deemed portions of the proposed vacated easement in areas of California Street and 13th Street unusable for road purposes. The easement portion of California Street between 14th Street and Rancho Santa Fe was vacated in 1997 per Resolution 97-83, thereby rendering the remaining portions of the existing easement unusable for road purposes as well. The proposed vacation will result in the current non-conforming development at 1019 Summer Holly Lane to be conforming as it relates to lot size and setbacks. The portion of the irrevocable offer of dedication, IOD, that was established per map 11529 and recorded in 1986 will now be dedicated to the City of Encinitas. Please refer to the green hatched outline area as the area of dedication. The portion to be vacated is in a heavily vegetated sloped area, which would now become the maintenance responsibility of the homeowner at 1019 Summer Holly Lane. The request for the vacation was routed to all applicable departments and reviewed with a determination that the remaining right-of-way still provides adequate width for future improvements to the existing sidewalk and roadway without hindrance to any city assets. And with that, city staff is recommending City Council adopt resolution number 2023-61 approving the summary street vacation and dedication of portions of public right-of-way. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. So I have some experience with the vacation of easements that led to the development of the form that starts on page 24. It's called the Easement, IOD, and Street Vacation Checklist. And this came as a result of the city council vacating easements at properties that we later regretted, because we wanted a sidewalk, we wanted a bike path, we wanted something that, because we had vacated an easement, was no longer possible. And so in looking at this form, it looks like this particular application for a vacation fits what we were trying to do. And frankly, if you look at the goofy vacation that we're doing here, it clearly was not hard to fill out this form and answer these questions. So that is one strange situation, and I'm sorry you had to experience it. Sean appreciates it, I'm sure, because he got a lot of work out of it, looks like. Yeah, there you go. So let's see, we do have a speaker. It looks like it's Councilmember Ehlers.
Okay. I just wanted to disclose I live on Olive Crest, and I know the owners of the property, Amy and Adam, but I live more than 500 feet away, and I've cleared it with our city attorney. I can be fair and impartial and have no conflict. With that, I would move approval of item 10D.
I will second it.
Adam, did you want to speak? Or?
I don't think I need to.
Okay. I just wanted to
Yeah, you know the old deal about
don't sell
keep it
past
quiet.
the close.
You don't need to close if your deal is done.
Just want to make sure.
Lesson from succession.
Motion carries.
Frankly, I'm sorry you had to do this. And, you know, it's just one of those things. I think Councilmember Ehlers has an old story that he shared.
Oh, well, actually, during the beautification of the corner there, Joel, that lives in our neighborhood, reached out to Chuck DeVivier, and Chuck remembered it and said, yeah, I meant to get that vacated. And you have to remember, our subdivision was done under the county and incorporated by the time it got sold. So it felt, and Chuck said, yeah, I never got to it. So, and, you know, he's a former city council member, too.
And we
Appreciate the city's support and help. We have been at it for close to a year, and I know it's a process that not many people go through, so I appreciate everyone's.
And we didn't mean to punish you by making you 10D and sit through these various hearings, but sorry, that's the way it worked out.
He's already punished. He has to live down the street from me, so, you know, I'm glad you were nice to him.
Okay, thank you. Now we're moving on to 11, no informational items, no council member initiated items. So that takes us to 13, city council member reports pursuant to AB 1234.
Nothing to report.
Nothing.
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 And I have nothing to report either. That takes us to city manager reports.
Just one briefly, if any of you would like to tour the work that's being done on South Coast 101, please let me know, and I'll have Jill take you out there.
Thank you. I will say that I wrote it, and some of the, yes, and, you know, it was classic just breaking the rules because the contractors were still out there putting in curbs and things, but I did it anyways. But it was, so one of the points that people make is it's very confusing, and I found it to be very confusing. But if you let this get finished, I trust it'll be a lot less confusing. So I also look forward to the reverse angle parking because it puts families getting their beach gear out, you know, inside, away from the highway. So city attorney reports.
No report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
City clerk reports.
No report.
That goes for Pete too? Nothing.
He has a lengthy report. He's getting ready right now.
Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Well, Chuck and I were never on the same side, so, no. Very. He was a Jim Bond.